On today's episode of Every Single Morning, we are going to discuss the importance of saying what you mean and meaning what you say. We're going to take a deep dive in that right here, right now, on Every Single Morning. Welcome to Every Single Morning. I'm Tanja.
I'm O'Shea.
We thank you so much for joining us on today. So, why not take this last episode of this season and end it off with a bang?
Wow.
Something that will just, either knock your socks off or smack you in the face, whichever you prefer. So, we're talking about say what you mean and mean what you say. And this conversation came up because of the fact that what O'Shea and I, what we like to do, we like to watch Tyler Perry's Sisters. And one of the characters on that show, Danny, also known as Daniela King, she's definitely one of a kind in a class by her doggone self. For those who are not familiar with the show, we're going to talk specifically about Danny. Now, there's four other sisters total, but we're only focusing on Danny because there was something interesting that came up on this season of the show. And one of the things that came up was her actually filing a suit against the company that she worked for wrongful suspension of her position. So before I get to that, let me give you a brief synopsis on Danny. Danny's one of those in your face, tells the truth, whether you like to hear it or not, type of women. But the moment you throw the camera or the lens back at her, then the spirit of offense tends to rise up when you do that to her. But she's quick to do that to everybody around her, including her sisters. But not for nothing, she does be on point with a lot of things that she says, but it's contradictory because she don't live the life that she preached to others, if that makes sense. So,
or she doesn't take it as well as she gives it.
That's true too. Yeah. And, we always know those kind of people, those who love to dish it, but can't necessarily take it when it's their turn. So, yeah, I definitely am in agreement with that. So now that I described who Danny is and the past lovers that she has had, how she used substances and sex to avoid confronting issues and avoiding dealing with issues of herself until her current beau brings that stuff up to her attention, who just happens to be the VP of the company that she works for.
Okay. Higher Airlines.
Yes, Higher Airlines. So in this instance, we already know that most organizations in real life frowns upon fraternizing, especially if you read, because how many of us actually read the employee handbook? Just saying. But if you actually read your employee handbook, it probably says in there, try not to fraternize or do not fraternize. So, and the fact that her current boyfriend is actually the vice president of this company, which also makes their work dynamic, very harassment forward, even though there's no harassment involved because it's consensual. But because of the role he plays versus the role that she plays, it draws a fine line for harassment.
Yeah.
Just saying. So the situation came up when there was a leadership program that her boyfriend, Tony, the VP, would think would suit Danny to be a part of. The problem was that program closed as far as applicants. But because of the role he played, he put her name in the ring because he was the vice president of the company, which shows what? Favoritism. So there was a disgruntled employee who found this out because he wanted to be a part of that program. It was not able to be it for, I forgot what the reasons were. So when he found out Danny was in the program and was the last entry in there to be placed in there, he was offended. So offended. And plus the fact that they have been flaunting their relationship on the job in a very public manner.
Mm-hmm.
So then he was very annoyed as well as offended. So he took his complaint to Human Resources. And once he filed the complaint against Human Resources, Human Resources did an investigation between Tony and Danny. So because, once again, of the role Tony played, he was able to smooth it out a bit as far as their role. So that way, Tony was able to keep his job, Danny was able to keep hers. Because they did not technically see their fraternizing except for the person that complained. Now, what took it too far was the fact that the person that complained kept taunting Danny and kept taunting and taunting. Yes, he was taunting and was very harassing to Danny. Yes. Was that appropriate? No. But it was still verbal nonetheless. So he was harassing her. But the way she handled the situation, it got physical. So much so that he had an iced coffee in his hand and she just took that cup and just flipped it in his face and had coffee spilled all over his face and his uniform. So, and that happened right at the midst of HR and Tony approaching those two. So,
while he was also trying to smooth over the leadership program debacle.
Right. And then so Tony, once again, using his position to try to smooth things over, he said, let me talk to HR, let me talk to, powers that be, and let's see what I can do. Now, of course, Danny was fearful of losing her job because of the actions that she took. So ultimately, they didn't fire her, but she was suspended without pay. That's almost just as
You
bad as
might
being
as
fired.
well say fired. Yeah,
You might as
because
well have been fired because
you ain't got paid. What are you doing? You're just in a holding pattern.
yeah. So, and the show fast forward 4 weeks later. So that's 1 month. So within that 1 month, Danny was not working. She was struggling to get her bills paid. And because her sister in the sister group is an attorney,
Indeed.
after she needed to get her stuff together, which is a whole separate discussion.
Whole separate show.
Whole separate discussion. She asked, well, Danny asked her friend to represent her to file a lawsuit against the company for wrongful suspension. So they had a mediation 4 weeks later. And in this mediation was the company's attorney with the HR rep and Tony, Danny, and her friend Andy, who was representing her. So they're going back and forth talking about the alleged incident, even though it was an actual incident. But of course, lawyer talk going back and forth, allegedly. Saying that technically you got one person's word and stuff like that. The way how Andy was able to word that thing and did it in such a way, which I found very admirable. The number one, we got to see Andy do her actual job. But anyway, again, she's a separate category. Separate category. Anyway. So long story short, short story long. They were able to settle the case out of court by having the company reinstate Danny's job, as well as the back pay that she lost, with an additional $75,000 for pain and suffering. Because they originally asked for $150,000, but the attorneys were bargaining against each other, and it was brought down to 75. So the company settled for that. So of course, Danny is happy that she's not only going to get the money that recouped from what she lost for those last 4 weeks, but she's also going to get an additional $75,000. So of course she's happy. Now, Tony, on the other hand, we don't know. Now his job is possibly up in the air because of the fact that this company had to settle with Danny because of this wrongful suspension lawsuit, because they didn't want it to go to court and they didn't want it to go any further. So later on that evening, I should say, come to find out, because of Tony's role in that whole incident, his position has now got transferred to another state, Alaska, no less, which puts a thing into their relationship, because they came to the conclusion that they want to be together, even though they keep going back and forth with each other, but they don't know where to go about it, how to go about it. It's just a ball of confusion. So we're using this particular incident and Danny specifically to talk about say what you mean what you say. Because of who we are, I felt led to go and look that word up in scripture. And It says right here in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 37, but let your yes be yes and your no, no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. So now we're going to talk about just how to say what you mean what you say. And now that I brought you all up to date about that, who we're using, why we're using that example, and et cetera, I felt it's profound that I have O'Shea because I love when he breaks down stuff, especially this incident since we watched this show together. And to give his take on this subject. So I turn it now over to O'Shea.
Okay. And let me just start by, I was very, 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 very upset by this whole turn of events with Tony, because although I felt like Tony was trying to help her, and he saw her potential to be greater than she was, and that led him to want to help her and all of this and all of that. However, I picked up from the onslaught, and I'm talking about since he was introduced to the show, that he loved seeing her broken. And I was telling Tanja that from the beginning. I said he liked seeing her broken, and I don't like it.
He has said that on numerous occasions.
He likes seeing her broken to the point where they would be about to have some wonderful sex, and he couldn't even do it from wanting to know how are you feeling, how he was trying to therapy her even in the middle of passion. And I'm like, wow. The last thing I'm thinking about therapy, that's what Creatious for. And that is what Creatious for. You go Creatious for, man.
Cretia is the therapist, by the way.
Yes. And you go to her for that, but he always had to therapy her. And so I didn't agree with him on that. But for this, I really did see his wanting her to be better, wanting, him wanting her to have a better life than what she had. I really saw that. And he paid for it. And so here's what I brought up to Tanja, is we both had our differences of opinion on this. I said, well, you look at Danny's history, she never can say what she really wants, because she said that her thing is, I kept telling you that I didn't want that. This is what she kept telling Tony. I kept telling you I didn't want that, and you just kept forcing me. You just kept forcing me. And then I said to Tanja, I said, how many times has she said she didn't want something that we later found out she did want? And then she got mad at a man because the man didn't read her mind and didn't give it to her. You know what I'm saying? And so this is where we came up with let your yes be yes and your no be no. And to make that clear, because then you leave people not knowing what they should do to help you or to aid you in your endeavors. You leave people like that, and then it makes it difficult to be in relationship with you, because I know by being with you, I should upgrade you in some way. I don't. How many women have always talked about, don't be with a man that takes you down, be with a man that takes you up, be with a man that does this and this. Well, if you don't let your yes be yes and your no be no, and you don't stand 10 toes down in what it is that you want or don't want, it's hard for a man to understand or to do that when you're not clear on you. When you're not clear on you. And the thing about it is, she wasn't clear on her. So she couldn't give him with certainty and with clarity what she needed. And so what we thought it would be to bring it to you all is that for a man and for a woman, in general, what I find sexy is clarity. Because some people are so mixed up in stuff and so chaotic and so toxic. Clarity is becoming sexy. Just be clear. I mean, the Bible said, write the vision and make it plain so that I can run. You ain't giving me nothing to run with. Then saying that, oh, I haven't gained nothing since I've been with you. You haven't been clear since you've been. You haven't been clear on this. Because a lot of times people get in relationship and they're not clear on their daddy issues. And you're saying that I was supposed to upgrade you and I was supposed to do all this for you when you know clear as well. You only dated me to piss off your father. and so now that your father's man, now you have all of these other expectations for me, but you did not make that clear. And that's why when I teach singles, or whenever we're talking to whenever I see couples talking, always update your spouse on who you are today. Here is where I'm going. Here is where I'm evolving. Because the worst thing is that we don't grow together. And now I'm an outdated version of what you used to need. And see, now it's not clear, and you can't give me clarity. Because that's the first thing that we see with Tony and Danny, is that neither one of them are clear. She's not clear because she does not know what she wants, because what she wants is based on the approval of her girlfriends. So when you're in a relationship with one of them, you in essence are in a relationship with all of them, because everybody got to go by and see what everybody.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's the truth, anyhow.
Got to go by and see what everybody wants and what everybody thinks about. I mean, and so you in relationship with 4 other women. because you got to worry about what all of them think. Because if one of them have a difference of opinion, you already at a disadvantage if all of them don't agree. And so you what that leads a man to feel is that you don't have your own mind. You don't have your own mind. I have to please 4 other women just to equal 1 for you. When you're not even inviting those 4 other women into our bedroom. I think they should at least be here if they're gonna get a vote. I know I'm making some folks mad with y'all girlfriend circle. Anyway.
Hey, I feel that way about guys. So
I think that it is because and that's another thing. That's a whole another show too.
That's a whole nother show.
Because
a lot of times these men be picking the women based on if their guy friends like them or not, if they find them attractive. Yeah.
And it's like, are you shopping for him or you? Well, but anyway, let me stay focused.
Stay focused, as Tabitha Brown loves to say.
Stay focused. Anyway, so you're in relationship with all of these women, they should be here, so nobody is clear. But on Tony's end, Tony is going through his own situation because his ex-wife has taken his children to another state or what have you, and he had no say so about that. And he has been in their life since they were born, and so he's missing somebody to tell what to do. You know, and since he don't have his kids, he's trying to make up a way to compensate for that, and that's coming into play, I believe, with him and Danny's relationship, and he's not being clear about that. Is that I'm used to having control of somebody or something, and the people that I used to tell what to do are no longer here, and so I'm trying to regain my footing because I don't know what to do without them. You know what I'm saying? And he's not clear with her on that. And then he's got his friend that he's watching go through stuff because his friend was running for city. What was that?
City council
or something like that. And his friend is going through stuff because of Scary Gary.
That's another conversation, though, too. How to avoid dealing with psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists.
Well, Jasmine will teach you how to do that. Spoiler alert if you ain't finished watching it. Anyway. But yeah, he's having to watch all of that, and then plus all of this stuff is shaking around him, and he's not communicating with her about it. And while he's therapying her, he needs to be in therapy, but he don't have a creature. Because sometimes we want to give people the very thing we need ourselves, but
But if you let
So
Tony tell it, he don't feel that he needs therapy at all because he feels he's fine, knowing that that is the furthest from the truth.
not because I will agree with him. At first, he did it, but once your life change and start spinning out of control, because at first it was her, and she was all like this and she was all like that. But when his kids left, he needed the therapy because when his ex-wife took the kids, that's when he started not knowing what to do with himself. That's when he started losing his grip on reality. And he needed that, but his therapists was people who was already jacked up themselves, because he would sit around with the brothers that'll tell him you're okay. You're okay because we have this stigma, and this is a whole nother show. But we have this stigma that black men, black people don't do therapy. When it's obvious we need to do therapy.
Mm-hmm. And as many times as I have told my testimony on this podcast, I am a firm believer of Jesus and therapy.
Yeah, and make sure your therapist is not also sick. Because a lot of times we get therapy from people who are sick too, in the same areas we are sick. And all they do is look at your wound and tell you, I got the same wound, so you're okay. I got the
Hilarious.
so you're okay. And it's not true. And so when you date somebody, when you um are in relationship with somebody, be clear. Be clear is pretty much all I feel like we came to say is be clear, because clarity is uh, underrated because a lot of people think, oh, just go with the flow. No, I need clear instructions. I need you to paint the picture. I need you to write the vision and make it plain so that I know what to run. I know how to help you. I know how to help me help you. Uh, and I know how to not make me crazy, because when you have things clearly outlined and you have a clear roadmap for somebody who becomes a part of your life to follow, it makes it easier for them to help you. Imagine if I'm the pastor of Alcorn of Life, and uh, Pastor Tanja or her sister comes say, "Well, Apostle, what you need help with?" Well, I don't know, or I need help with this day, and not this day, and I keep confusing them. They're going to give up. They're going to leave the vision because it's not plain. It's confusion. It's I never know which one I'm gonna get. I never know this. I never know that. So you don't want things to be up in the air in your relationship. You want to make sure that you're clear. You state what you want and mean what you say. Mean what you say. And whenever somebody does this, it does not hurt you to say, hey, you're doing it again. I told you yesterday I didn't want that. I'm standing 10 toes down in my decision. This is my boundary. Leave this part of my life alone. Even, and I'm not condoning, but even if you have to say, look, because some people are doing it anyway. Look, we over here for sex. You are not my therapist. Can y'all believe Apostle just said that?
If they have been watching this podcast for the last 3 seasons, this should be no surprise to anyone.
Look, this is about the business. This ain't church. So don't get to speaking in tongues in this investor meeting. Because if you speak in tongues, I will rebuke you. You messing up my money. You know, he's worldly. The person that's coming to invest in this business, he's worldly. He don't understand tongues. And you ain't got time in this investor meeting to explain to him what you just said in tongues. So and I'm gonna fire you because you can't type, not because you're black, because you can't type.
Too much. Hashtag way too much.
Because you have to let people know what this is. Because how many people work for churches and they think that when they come to work for the church, we're going to speak in tongues, quote scripture, and minister to people all day. Look, I'm not firing you because you're not filled with the Holy Ghost. I'm firing you because you didn't type not one proposal I asked you to do. Don't be talking about the devil busy. I fired you because the devil might be busy, but you ain't.
Hilarious.
You know, don't talk the devil attacking you. Yes, he attacked you right to the unemployment line.
Well, fact about me, I used to work for churches on the real. So I wasn't members of these churches, but I did work for them. So I treated it as a job because that's exactly what it was to me. I was getting a paycheck, but there were people who were working in the church who were actually members of the church too. So it was like very funny to watch these try to do the duality between being a member and being an employee.
Yeah.
Fascinating, but that's a whole nother separate conversation. Focus.
They thought, did they think that they had special privileges because they were members?
It wasn't because the fact that they thought that they had special privileges. It's just when you privy to know information, especially about other members, and then when you see that file, you become like, you know, but they can't share it because you signed a confidentiality agreement when you took the position at the job. So, you know, it's stuff like that, you know. But I digress.
Oh wow. We got to have the episode one day. Oh wow. That was be hilarious. And they be still trying to tell it in their own way.
Oh, they do it in a roundabout way. And especially it's even funnier when they have Sunday service and they come privy to this information and then they give these other members the side eye, especially because the department that I worked for was responsible for collecting all the tithes and offerings and putting it into the database. So I don't care because I'm not a member of the church, but when somebody asks for a report of who gives weekly tithes and offerings, and you see the list of names of who gives on a consistent basis, the people who they expect for them to give don't give, and then the people who they don't expect to give actually gives. So it's always usually the ones who has the the higher tax bracket that gives the least. So And then the one who has the least amount gives the most. So it's in that nature that is like, oh, that's what we're doing? Because usually it's the preacher who, or the pastor in this case, that would usually focus on the high earning donors to try to convince them to give a little more. And by them doing that, they usually wine them, dine them, stuff like that. And, they finish doing all that whining and dining and they still don't give. So it's kind of defeats the entire purpose, So, but yeah, I found it fascinating watching all of that. And, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just doing my job, but it's fascinating to me.
Oh, wow. So, in conclusion, what do you have to say, Tanja?
Okay, so in this instance, looking at Danny as well as Tony, and looking at the whole cast, period. None of them say what they mean or mean what they say. They're all oxymoronic. They're all having drama for absolutely nothing when there's operating in nothing but a bunch of misunderstandings and miscommunication. So if people just say what they mean and mean what they say, I guess we wouldn't have a show. But nonetheless,
who feeding your Cheerios about this show?
I'm just saying. Because, there was a time that I stopped watching the show for that very reason. Because of the fact that, I didn't watch any of season 7 because I was so frustrated, right? But anyway, long story short story long, if people just say what they mean and mean what they say and stand on it, don't waver, stand on it, you'd be surprised how many people will not only, take you seriously, but actually respect you in the process. Because the ones who are offended are usually the ones who takes advantage of you anyway. But anybody else, they'll turn around and be like, you know what? I respect that. I'm going to do just that. So that's how I see this entire situation regarding that specific case, that specific episode. And the fact that if Danny was clear from the beginning, and stood on it. She made herself clear after he made the decision. He was wrong because he should have known the type of woman that she is because he was the VP and you get to see her track record. She didn't care about her doggone job. What made you think that she wanted to be in a leadership position?
Or that she was even fit to lead.
She was just happy to just coast on by at this job because there was no, what's the word? Expectations of her.
Oh, okay.
There were no expectations of her. That's why she was able to coast in this job. So by putting her in a leadership program, you're asking more of her than she was willing to do, especially if she didn't want to do it. And the fact that he took it upon himself to look at her as a project rather than potential, instead of accepting her for where she was. Because as the VP, you should look at somebody's track record and see if they even want to be a part of something like this or not. If you see that she has a lot of doggone PTO use, if you see that, she takes very long lunch breaks, if you see in her record that she does this, that, and a third, 9 times out of 10, you would not be motivated to put her in a leadership program because she did not show any leadership potential. That's my personal opinion of that. Now, in regards to Danny, is the fact that she expects for people to read her mind because of the fact that she doesn't communicate well. She doesn't communicate well because of the fact that, and I'm noticing, thanks to her finally going to therapy, she did not know how. She communicated with her body. She communicated with her substances rather than communicating with her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
If she were to communicate with her mouth about how she felt, why she operated the way she operated, why she thinks the way she thinks, you would see that there's a problem, that she wasn't willing in the beginning to take into consideration. Now, the positive thing about this whole occurrence between Tony and Danny is the fact that it did make her have a wake-up call as far as accepting the fact of needing therapy. Because there was a time she didn't even want to do that because she felt she didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that with this situation and being with Tony, that she even took it into consideration is the outcome, the positive outcome of this whole scenario.
Mm-hmm.
That she was willing to go to therapy and because of who Danny is, was willing to take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she's able to now be more self-aware and doing the work rather than just coasting that too. And she knew she couldn't coast on doing therapy because she's paying for that out of her pocket. The last thing you're going to do is coast when you're paying for it. If you was on somebody else's dime, that's something different. But when you're paying for the therapy out of your pocket, you better take that thing seriously. Because
Mm-hmm.
therapy is not cheap.
No.
So at any rate, now that she's more self-aware, moving forward, hopefully in next season, that she will say what she means and mean what she says this time. And I'm trying to be hopeful. I hope that would be the case for her and anybody who's watching this episode, that you would listen to what we're saying and using this as an example for your life, as far as anytime when you're in a situation, anytime when you have a decision to make, anytime when, even when you take things to God and you make vows and promises unto God, say what you mean and mean what you say. Because there's a price to pay if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I see it. So, final thoughts?
I will say I think he saw her potential. I think he went about it the wrong way. He just needs to know and understand with clarity his place in her life. So even though you see her potential to be this great person, or even you aspire for her to be this great person, you have to know when a person's saying, yes, I'm glad you see that. I don't want that. And I know as a spiritual father, I know as a pastor, I know as a son, I know as an uncle, I know as any kind of person that sees the future of other people and you see the greatness of what they can be. When they don't want it, it's going to only eventually hurt you by trying to give it to them. It's going to hurt you. And in the end, it ended up did hurt him because she did not want it. She did not want it because you have to pay attention to how a person sees themselves. You can see them as this, you can see them as that, all you want to. If they don't see themselves as that, they'll never manifest into it. They'll never be that if they don't see it within themselves. And no matter how many doors you open for them, no matter how many rules you bend for them, they're going to keep showing you what they believe about themselves. And it's up to you to take that into consideration. I see this, and I'm just gonna have to go to God. I'm gonna have to go in the presence of the Lord and say, Lord, I gave them everything I had. Everything. I've given them the mentorship. I've preached about it. I have fussed about it. I've done everything. But they don't want it. And when what they don't want now starts to interfere with my elevation, my increase, my abundance, I gotta let that go. I gotta let that go. But then don't be like Cain, who now is jealous of Abel's success because he chose not to sit on his potential. He chose not to coast on by on his potential. He decided that no, I'm going to give God 110% of what God asked me for, and it does not matter what I think, what I feel. I'm giving it my all. Because you'll have people that won't give it their full potential, won't operate at full capacity. And then when you start operating at full capacity and you don't allow their capacity to receive, to dictate your capacity to receive, they'll be mad at you because you're in a higher position. I gave more than you. I worked harder. I was on the grind harder. I signed up for more opportunities. I put myself out there more. You can't be mad. You can't be mad. And even though you shouldn't be mad, I understand that you are. But I can't not allow it to start to sink me. And that's what it did with Tony. It started to sink him. Because now his good is being evil spoken of. Because there was no clarity, there was a belief in potential that somebody didn't believe in themselves, and you tried to get them to take it and they didn't want to take it. And so eventually it starts to hurt you. There's a popular saying that says when helping you is starting to hurt me. When helping you is starting to hurt me. And then to the whole being public in the workplace. Their fraternizing would have been okay as long as you understand, like the Bible says, there is a time and a place for everything. We at work, ain't no time to go get a quickie in the bathroom. We at work. This the last episode, so I got to give it all I got. We at work, okay? It ain't no time to go and do this and do. There's in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, to everything there is a season and a time under heaven. We ain't at home, so ain't no rolling up, because he was even inappropriate by how he used to roll up behind her and be kissing her on the. You don't do that at work. What's wrong with waiting till y'all got off work or got home or whatever to do all that? Because they not paying you unless y'all working somewhere else, but that's all. Y'all got no Apostle gonna give it all he got. This is season finale, where all the shockers come. And
Yep.
Finale, here it is. You ready for it? Here you go. Yeah, but now you gotta understand it. You gotta understand it. So I believe that she did have potential. He did see her potential, but she didn't want it. And he so wanted it for her that he was willing to injure himself to give it to her. But the thing of it is, now you have an offer for Alaska, and that wasn't even at all where you wanted to be. So now you done injured yourself, and then still trying to pursue a relationship with a woman that continues to show you that she's unclear. She's unclear. She's in between a rock and a hard place right now. And so I just have to say in close, make sure you know what you're doing when you see somebody's potential, because for me, this episode let me know potential. Okay, you got potential. Okay, I see what you could be. But let me tell you something. I'm not gonna push your potential so hard that it injures me. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you know what I see for your life. I'm gonna let you know what I see in you, who you are versus who you acting like.
And leave us with our thoughts.
Who you are versus who you acting like. And I'm going to leave you with your thoughts while I go into my destiny, because one of us got to be rich. And if it ain't going to be you, it might as well be me. And I dropped the mic.
Well, from that note, O'Shea, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me Rich on you can find me Rich on TikTok. And everything above. You can also find our ministry on StreamYard. Lord Jesus. Yes, it's time to go. You can find our ministry on Facebook at the handle above. Also, don't forget to check out our link tree, where there's a lot of other things that we're doing in the ministry and some by way of entrepreneurship. Because I told you, if it ain't gonna be you, might as well be me.
Yes, sir.
So, Tanja, tell them where they can find you.
You can definitely find me on all the handles right here on the bottom, all the bottom. You can find me all down there. TikTok, while we still have it. By the time this airs, we have 30 days before it's supposed to close for the final time.
Wait, they supposed to close it?
Allegedly, unless somebody does buy it up.
So all I do is say 8647.
Anyway. So you could also find the rest of my stuff on my link tree, with the exception of my website. I pray that it will be back up in Jesus' name, because let me tell you, this is the year that my life will be forever changed, and I'm going to proclaim it, and I'm going to say it till the cows come home. And since this is our last episode of the season, we are looking forward to what is about to take place on season 4.
We've been renewed for season 4.
We've been renewed for season 4. Because
congratulations to us.
Yeah.
Nominate us for Emmy NAACP award.
We need some numbers where we can be nominated for an NAACP Image
I
Award.
can do anything but fail. Yes, he can.
This is true. This is true. This is true. And prayerfully, by the time we do come back for season 4, our lives will be forever changed. We will have wonderful updates to give. And, by the time we come back, O'Shea will be off sabbatical.
With my new boo.
With your new boo, in Jesus' name. Prayerfully, my new boo will be on the horizon. And by the time we get to season 4, either we will be announcing prayerfully an engagement or an actual marriage, whichever one, whatever the Lord has at this point. I'm just
a moving date.
Oh, definitely a moving date. Definitely a moving date. We'd be glad, even though I appreciate the lessons that I've learned from this season of my life. I am so looking forward to my next one. Amen. So, with that said, until next season, lovely people, we will see you when we see you. Bye-bye.